Welcome to Is Anybody Listening to Me podcast with Azar and the Meat. This has been a long-awaited episode. We were on break for a while, enjoying the holiday season, but due to popular demand and constant nagging, and we've decided to at least get an episode in before Christmas because I think it's time to catch up. Big Meat and I were telling, or if you were listening, we were telling you guys it was a struggle catching up on all the movies that were coming out and all the entertainment when everything was so busy in our lives. And I think we finally started catching up and can finally give you guys some interesting content to enjoy. And hopefully moving forward, we'll try to get back on a more regular schedule for you guys. But more importantly, let me get my partner on board here. Let me introduce you to Big Meat. How's it going?
It's going very well, and I miss you, Azar. It's been a long time here. I know all of our fans are just hounding us, and sometimes we have lives too. This isn't just what we do. This isn't our everyday job. We're not getting paid for this. We have families, we have lives, we have things going on. You got stupid COVID, always kind of getting in the way of stuff. So it's good to just kind of be like, hey, let's take a little bit of a break, and then that way when we do have it, then it's like we keep our fans waiting, right? And it's the anticipation builds up so that the podcast is even better. And that's I
agree. What better time to jump back onto a podcast right before the playoff season starts, both in fantasy and regular football. Some of the great holiday season movies start coming out, and there's so much more excitement coming out. New shows are dropping now. So we have more content. I got to say, even though we had football and we originally started this podcast as like, oh, we're going to be a fantasy football podcast, but we realized we started focusing more on entertainment and football, and it was getting tough. It was getting tough to do a weekly podcast, which was surprising because we were on a roll forever.
Oh, sure.
At the start of the year.
Yeah. Well, we made it a point to try to go every week, and we did that. We were pretty consistent with it, and now we took some time off here, but fine. But we're still alive. We're alive and well. The podcast is not dead. Unfortunately, we don't have our third man in today, but that's okay. That's okay.
He might surprise us.
Well, if he surprises us. It's one less person that I have to hear about because there's only two guys in our fantasy league that have a bye week, and he's one of them. And unfortunately, you're the other one. So at least, as I'm watching the game, the Kansas City game here, and having players playing in this game and watching it live during the podcast here, I'm on the edge of my seat here. But you can relax, Azar, because you don't have to worry about this week.
Yeah, I felt like I've been relaxing all season. I've been on cruise control, finishing first in the league.
That's an Azar loves his team comment. That's his way of saying he loves.
Oh, you know what? I had to have a conversation with Mr. Roper about this, and he was like, "Man, you're so smug," and he was basically calling me out this year. And I said, how often do you get a really good year to brag, right? Like sometimes it's just I do have it frequently.
You should brag.
But when you're having a good year and you had a really good draft, everything kind of worked out like you hoped it would, why not enjoy it? And that was my rationale to him. I was like, you know what? I started thinking about it. I'm like, I'm so worried about jinxing my team and this and that. I can't control if a guy's going to get hurt or get COVID. That's beyond my control. I can wish it or whatever. It's going to happen if I'm bragging or not bragging. But, the chance to actually have fun, send out funny gifts, be dominant in the season, just go with it. Now, that was my theory on it. I'm tired of just being afraid to jinx myself all season. Because you know what? I can still get eliminated in the next round. And then I'll be mad at myself. Like, I wasted all that time to brag. Now I'm eliminated and I can't do anything. So enjoy it. And, you need enemies. And Big Meat's notoriously the big enemy number one with his bragging and obnoxious grins. So we're going the way of the meat. We're just going to go.
You have to. But, on the flip side is that if you do lose, and you get eliminated, then the floodgates open up, and that everybody now can attack you because now they're like, well, he's been talking all year, and now here's our opportunity to throw it back at you, and you got to take it,
Yeah, Yeah,
You just got to accept it. And that's, it's all for fun. It's all like whatever. I think I used to take it more serious years ago, and I'd be like, oh, I just want to win. And now I'm like, whatever. It's supposed to be a kind of a fun thing with friends, and you're supposed to kind of shit on them when they're not doing well. And it's
I agree.
like you got this year, right? You have Roper at the beginning of the year. His team was pretty stacked, right? I mean, he had
Number one pick.
Mahomes. He had the number one pick with McCaffrey. He had Metcalf, and he had Kittle. Those are kind of his first 4 round picks, and it's like, wow, it's like 4 solid picks right there. And you think, wow, that three-headed monster of McCaffrey, Mahomes, and Metcalf, right? And then he pulled off the heist of the century with that trade with Mute Boy. And I don't care what anybody says, that is the most lopsided trade of all time, And for him not to make the playoffs is just mind-boggling to me. It's just such a complete shock that with a team like that he had could not make the playoffs. Now imagine if he didn't make that trade and he didn't have Justin Jefferson and James Robinson. Where would he be?
He would have been in the basement a lot earlier because they carried him.
He'd be the worst team. He'd be the worst team in the league. Yeah.
It was funny because we did in conversation. He was wondering would he be in a better position if he kept Stafford because the way Mahomes is. But if you actually look at Stafford's fantasy ranking, him and Mahomes is actually ranked higher than him. So it's not like, or maybe he's behind him now.
Early on in the season, Mahomes has turned it on the last several weeks here, and Stafford has actually kind of come back down to earth a little bit.
But, that's what I mean. He started hot, but then he fizzled for a while. I mean, Matt Stafford was struggling. So I think at the end, it wasn't his quarterback. It was the rest of his team. But anyways, we're not here to talk about Roper's team. He's out of the playoffs. It's fun to laugh at him because when you have the number one pick and you don't make it to the playoffs, that hurts. That just hurts.
Yeah.
And it hurts your credibility. But it has been a crazy season. And now, which is weird, now COVID is rearing its ugly head in fantasy football, which sucks it would suck for a championship to be determined by, oh, my top player got COVID the week of the championship. I think that would suck for anybody to lose that way. And even if you win, it's a shitty way to win because then someone's always going to be like, well, I only lost because I lost my player to COVID and you would have never beat me. It's always going to be like that fake asterisk on that championship if someone's key player was not there. So this COVID is just so frustrating. And I don't understand the league's mentality of test. If everybody's vaccinated, why are you testing all the vaccinated people week after week after week? Like, what's the point of that? So you're going to find if these guys they're being benched because they have COVID, but they're not sick. I mean, it's just insanity at this point. I don't get why. Like, if everybody's vaccinated and he's not sick,
right?
What are we doing?
Right. Like, and it's kind of a point of like all those people that did get vaccinated, right? And it's already been proven now, right, with all the Omicron variant, and it doesn't. You could still get it even if you're vaccinated, right?
Yeah.
So, but it does lessen the severity of COVID. Maybe it decreases the chance of hospitalization and that sort of thing. So if that was the case for getting vaccinated, and people are vaccinated, I think most of the NFL is, I think like 95% of the league or something like that. Some teams it's like 100% they're vaccinated. So if they play and somebody gets it and they're vaccinated and they don't get sick or it's very minimal, I mean, what's the big deal? Why don't they play? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like they're thinking they're gonna like risk somebody in getting it and they're gonna end up dying or getting on. Have you heard any player in the NFL get COVID and get like hospitalized to the point where like they got really sick? I haven't heard one case.
Football is one of the most brutal sports, and there's more risk of them breaking their neck, blowing out a knee, destroying an Achilles, whatever, playing the sport, and you're worried about them getting a cold. That's where they are at the NFL, which it's insane. You know what? I feel for the players because it's got to be driving them crazy. They're this close. Some of the teams are competing for the playoff to get in the playoffs, and they're not even sick. It's because you're testing everybody. And it's just like if you keep looking, you're always going to have positive cases. I'm sorry. You're going to keep looking. You're going to find positive cases.
Yep.
And it's just insane. I mean, they got to change the rules and say, all right, if you're vaccinated, unless you're in close contact with an unvaccinated positive, then we'll test you. But just to keep randomly testing these guys that are just want to get on with their lives. But
yeah, I think a lot of it's just a PR move. It's just a PR move to just make everybody happy. And but I think they are talking about it. They are discussing maybe changing it up and coming up with some new way to handle it. Whatever that is, they got to do something, because you're right. It's not only in the real NFL where players could miss games, critical games where they're trying to make the playoffs, or God forbid when they're in the playoffs, but for us as well in fantasy football wise. I mean, I just read today, they haven't said that they have COVID, but they've missed practice due to an illness. And it's a little like ominous to hear that, right? It's like, oh, well, what is it? Is it COVID? Why'd they miss practice? A couple of guys, Marquise Brown, I forget the other guy. I think it's was it Gibson, or I forget who it was. Anyway, it was somebody, and so yeah, it could happen to anybody, and that could derail somebody's fantasy season for sure. Just unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it, right? They miss it, they miss it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You got to just come to terms. Like, you could get bit in the butt. Like when I saw Madison test positive. Now I have him on my bench, so I don't really care. But then I was like, man, that stinks for the person that has Cook. Mute Boy has Cook. He's in a competitive game this weekend. He might not even win because his top player might, the day before the game, might just pop up. Or in my case,
he's not.
What do you mean?
Because Mute Boy's not in the playoffs.
Oh, well, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
you know what? I'm sorry.
Mute Boy, it doesn't matter with Mute Boy anymore. He lost a heartbreaker this past week by a half a point on like the last play of the game.
That's right. I'm sorry. I was just thinking of him because Cook was such a big name. If he's out of the playoffs, like that would just suck. So maybe it's best that he did get eliminated, because I think that'd be worse to be in the playoff and then lose Dalvin Cook for the rest of the season, or the 2 key weeks because of COVID or something stupid. So that was my greater point. Sorry, Mute Boy. I didn't mean to rub the salt on the wound that you got eliminated. I completely forgot. But it's just crazy. And I'm just, I was thinking in my situation, I'm competing for most points against our third man. My tight end gets positive before the game on a Monday night. I'm not going to go scramble to find this bum backup and get drop players and go through this chaos. I didn't do it. And then you come to find out the guy had a false positive. That's even worse. That's worse. Can you imagine being in the championship game and your star running back test positive and you're like, oh, what can I do? Then the next day they say, oh, sorry, false positive, and he could have played anyways. Oh,
that's brutal. The worst. I could see if you had missed it by a few points, that because you had 0 points.
Oh yeah, I didn't have a shot. I think
it was like 30 points still. I mean, could he have had whatever, a huge game maybe? Oh, as CEH almost ran it in for a touchdown, but he didn't. Got distracted there for a second.
Real pro.
He actually got hit hard right there too. I'm surprised he got up.
Stay down. Stay down. My situation doesn't matter. We were texting. I congratulated him. It would be silly. I told our conversation. It would be silly to disrupt the whole league and make a big stink about something that was such a long shot anyways. If it was Kittle getting benched or Kelsey, all right, I maybe they had a fighting chance to compete, but Higbee is he's not shattering any records or anything like that in one game. He's just he's a tool, but he gets looks. That's why I have him. But anyways, all right, Big B, did a little bit of fantasy talk. I really want to get into the Patriots, but I'm going to save that because we're not going to do a very long podcast. We're going to try to keep it nice and tight, just to catch up. But I really wanted to get into, I'm going to call it Marvel Mania. There's finally things are dropping, and I can see, because we were like this next phase of what Marvel was going to do. It's still kind of like dark. You're not sure where everything is going. Now things are starting to emerge. You're like, I'm starting to see where all this is starting to go, and it's getting exciting. But you and I have some catching up to do. So you and I both saw Shang-Chi.
Yes.
And we both liked it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Overall, it was a good it wasn't the best Marvel movie. I'm not going to pretend and say it was one of the best Marvel movies. So if it drops on Disney Plus for free, it's definitely worth watching. It was good. I like the actor. I didn't get the female sidekick, the comedian. Like, I think she's in real life a comedian.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they wanted to try to loop her in as some action hero. And I don't want to spoil it. What I don't get, I get she's like the comic relief through the whole movie.
Yeah.
But at the end of the movie, after the credits, they had the clip where, what's his name from Doctor Strange?
Wong.
Wong. Wong comes in, and he's part of it. I'm not going to spoil it, but Wong's there and talks to them. I don't know why he's talking to the girl. Like, why all of a sudden is she in, like, a key part of the storyline? Like, why? What possesses her to be part of the storyline? Like, why not his sister? I would get his sister, but this girl who has no fighting experience, nothing to do with anything, all of a sudden is a key part of the Marvel franchise? Seriously?
Yeah.
I don't get it. So that is as dumb as the girl from Star Wars, the young Asian girl that was... Look, I have nothing against Asian people. They have great characters.
I was going to say there's a theme here.
But there's two female Asian characters. I don't get what is their purpose. Like, they're poorly written in the storyline. So I'm just so confused.
I could understand with, and what was her name? Rose in the Star Wars movie there. She was useless. She was useless. She wasn't funny. She was like, she offered nothing in that role. I think in this one with Shang-Chi, there was that comedy relief, right? She's, I thought it was kind of, it lightened it up a little bit when she was in it. I think they wanted to have a little bit of that. Okay, she's there, and it's like his best friend for a long time, and they wanted somebody that was close to him that like he would be able to fight and try to save her in some way, right? Because when he gets there, it's he's basically fighting his father, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I agree with you at the very end and the after credits. It's like, okay, is she going to be kind of included with all this? I don't think so. I think she was just kind of there because it's his buddy, it's his friend. That's all.
Yeah.
I do agree. It was just kind of like, it was kind of strange there to bring her. I thought the movie was really good. It is on Disney Plus. I actually watched it on Disney Plus.
Okay.
So it's been out for, I don't know, a month or so, and I thought it was good. I like the actor. I like the guy that played Shang-Chi. He wasn't over the top, like, right? I mean, he had some good fighting skills. He was believable, right? I mean, I could see him fitting into kind of the group of Avengers, whoever that is for like the next Avengers movie, and him being kind of an integral part to that team, if you will. Whereas, like, maybe somebody else, if you don't like the person, like Captain Marvel, right? It was just kind of like, just kind of dry or whatever. If you don't like the actor that plays that role, you kind of like, it kind of kills it for you a little bit down the road, because this is all one universe. They all play a role together. Like the next Avengers movie, they're all going to come together. And if you don't like that if you don't like that actor playing that character, it's kind of like, it's a little bit of a disappointment. So I think when this guy watching this movie, I said, okay, I like this guy. I like his character. So at least that's a good part of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's funny you say that, because when you think back at the Avengers series, I actually I can't think of a character I didn't like that played his part. I thought every character kind of fit and played his part really well. Yeah. Except Captain Marvel was with that one character you were like, I don't really care for you too much. Like, something about her was, she just didn't fit. Like, I think they could have found a better actress to make it fit. I don't know, but you're right. It's interesting. So that movie dropped. Then the Eternals came out, and the previews of Eternals looked really good. Now I know you haven't watched it. You're waiting for it to drop. So we paid for it during I don't know, in the last stretch. I don't know if we would watch it during COVID or when we got COVID or when whatever happened. No, actually, we went to the movies. I'm sorry. We did go. We snuck out and got to go see it. And I got to say, I didn't like it. It was not. It was a little convoluted, and I'm not sure they had all this star power in the movie, but they couldn't make it gel. And I think what I was telling you before the podcast started, I don't understand when you start getting into the universe, how many supreme beings are there? Because they were talking about another supreme being that has this power. I don't want to spoil the movie for you because I don't want to go into too much details. You might have already read some stuff. But I'm like, all right, you're introducing this franchise. He's got his own supreme power. You're doing Loki with the character that's going to have like ultimate powers. How many super beings are in the universe, and how do they all fit in together? Wouldn't they all be competing with each other to be the supreme being? So I'm a little confused. And how many times can we have a supreme being that has this all powerful influence, and they all seem to have an influence on Earth? And I'm like, so are they all not talking to each other? Like these supreme beings, like, are they confused? Like who's doing what? Or is it somehow they're all the same person? I'm just confused. So, and that's the thing, the way the Eternals ended, you're like, I don't even know how this fits into the story at all. Like it seems really confusing.
But wasn't it? And I don't know if these beings that you're referring to, because I know from the trailer and what I've heard is that I guess the Eternals, the heroes of the movie, they couldn't interfere in everyday life, right? That's why they couldn't interfere with Thanos and all the other stuff that was going on in previous movies. So maybe that's kind of a similar case with the beings. And you don't really have to answer that because I don't want to spoil anything, but maybe I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
No, I can't see. I'll let you watch it. We'll go back because at some point we're going to have to try to figure it out so we can explain it to people that might be just as confused as we are. And I know you and I will go into Screen Rant and we'll do our research. It isn't what you think. And it
didn't get good ratings. I mean, it was poorly reviewed. I mean, it wasn't
for the star power it had. Yeah. You have Selma Hayek, you had Angelina Jolie.
Love Selma
Hayek. But Selma Hayek is not an action character, but she wasn't in the movie anyways. She wasn't like this big action part of it. She was more of like the mother figure. But Angelina Jolie is a pretty good action actress. Yeah. She's in a lot of action movies over the years. Poorly done. Like they didn't capitalize on her full capabilities. And you had the guys from the Game of Thrones, and I just can't tell you. You have to watch it. You got to, and maybe it's just something I got to rewatch and maybe pay attention. Maybe I'm missing some details, but like I said, what I don't get is, is it Kang? Kang the Conqueror, right? Is
Kang? Yeah, and Loki.
And Loki. Yeah. He's the supreme being that we feel is like have a major influence moving forward, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand because this supreme being that's involved in the Eternals, he was never conquered or vanquished or anything. So he's still a major player. So I don't understand. Is Eternals really part of it? Or is just an independent movie they just said, let's see if this works? I just don't know how they're going to fit in.
Yeah.
They reference like they know Thor, like they know some of the players. It's just bizarre. Like it's just
so I know, like I have a couple of thoughts on that. I know, like, because it's got so many characters in it, it's kind of a recipe for disaster because you have so many characters and you don't have time to develop those characters. It's not like they were introduced in previous movies as just kind of cameos or whatever. And now you could get a little bit more into their story. You introduce a whole bunch of characters into a movie and you think everyone's just going to have an emotional attachment to them. It never works out. It never does work out. That's how DC failed. They kind of threw a whole bunch of things going on all at once, whereas Marvel kind of had those origin stories one after another. Fair. So that's my thought on that. And then second is the one thing I don't like about Marvel and a little bit what you're saying is, all these movies, I think there are 24 movies now, plus all the Marvel series now that they've come out this year. You always think back to all the events that have happened, right? And I don't know. I like it when something makes sense, right? So when Thanos was kind of the guy pulling the strings back in the day, right? And then you had those various villains come out. But I don't like that when a movie comes out and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, this villain has been around for, decades. Shang-Chi did the same thing. You got this all-powerful guy, right, that was just dominating for centuries, right? And he can live forever. And where was he throughout everything? Like, doesn't he look at something and say, oh, there's the Avengers Tower has that glow stick of destiny that they call like Loki's glow stick. Wouldn't he be like, hey, I'm powerful enough. I could go in there and take that thing, and now I can be even more powerful. Like I feel like it's just stuff that you're watching doesn't make sense when these new characters come out that have all these powers and they don't take advantage of it in previous years. Like, where are they? How come they're not in these battles? Same thing like what you're saying with the Eternals, this all-powerful being. Where have they been this whole time? I don't like that. I don't like because it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you introduce a new villain that just happens to get his powers, or like what I think they're doing with Spider-Man, and they've kind of touched on it with Loki, where there's a multiverse. Now they're coming in from other universes. They weren't in that universe, so that's why they weren't doing anything because they weren't there. That makes sense. But if somebody's been on Earth for a long time, where have they been? Where have they been? It just that's my only thing. My only thing that it just kind of drives me crazy with the Marvel movies.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't get. Sometimes they might be getting too cute with some of this stuff. Like someone's like, oh, we can make this work. We'll figure it out. Just you have to just Anyways, I'm 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 curious to see where they go with it. It would be surprising. I mean, unless somehow the Eternals and their being and everything is part of the new Thor, because they mentioned Thor. Maybe they're tied into the new Thor movie, and I don't get it. But anyways, I don't want to dwell on that. So you touched on it. They're dropping these shows on Disney Plus, and Hawkeye came out with this 6-episode series, and it's basically kind of timed for the holiday season because the last episode literally drops right before Christmas, and he's on a race. Basically supposed to take place like that show 24, but it's over 6 days. That's why it's 6 episodes, 6 days before Christmas, and he's trying to get everything done. I like that. I like that it's got a holiday theme because I think it fits perfectly with the time of year. I love that. Like you're listening to Christmas music. I'm like, this makes sense. If it was over the summer, I'm listening to Christmas music, I'd be like, what the hell is this? Yeah. This is stupid. But because it was dropped, they kind of timed it perfectly. I like the show. Compared to what we saw with the last couple of series, Loki was okay, but it wasn't as much action as I thought there was opportunity for. It was just more of a story you had to pay attention to. WandaVision wasn't that much action. Falcon and Winter Soldier was, other than being on the boat, was relatively a disappointment. But I find this show and the action just keeps going. And have you watched the last episode? So you saw.
I did. Yeah.
The Black Widows are now introduced, and which ties into the movie that just
Black
came
Widow
out.
Movie. Sure.
Yeah. So now you see Natasha's sister involved in it. I like tying in all these things. This makes sense to me. And that's why I like that show so much better, because I feel like finally, all right, some things are starting to make sense. Where was this girl? And they actually explained where was Natasha's sister when the whole of when the blip happened and all that stuff. So
right.
I liked it.
I do like those parts. I do. And the first and if we're going to probably get into some spoilers here, because I want to be able to kind of.
We're 5 episodes in, so if you haven't watched the first few episodes, I don't know what to tell you. You got to catch up.
You got and the 6th, and they come out. It comes out every Wednesday, right? Wednesday. So like the 6th and last episode is coming up next week. So I liked they remember the opening scene. And it was kind of the flashback to the battle in New York, right? And I love that. I love that because it was it kind of tied it in a little bit more. And, and you get this girl that kind of grew up kind of training and almost kind of wanting to become an Avenger when she gets older. But I do think there's a part of it too. It's she's fighting assassins, trained assassins that have been trained to kill. And she's kind of holding her own. I think that part of it is a little bit all right. Come on. She's still just some girl that got lessons for fencing and all this other stuff. It's she's that great of a fighter that she's kind of keeping up with
Yeah.
Black Widow's sister there. And I don't know. And then another part too that I didn't like was I thought it just, and I think I said this in a text. It seemed like the last couple episodes were better. Were better. I think the first few episodes, I felt like I was watching like a made for one of those made for TV Christmas movies. Like it was like one of those like oh the holiday themed movie on ABC, like starring whatever. And I'm sitting there watching. And I'm like, all right, I get the holiday theme. I like it. I'm not complaining about that because I like the change of themes for all the shows. But it just didn't seem like Hawkeye didn't even do anything until like episode 4 or episode 3, maybe. I mean, the first 2 episodes, like he went to the LARPers and he was like,
Yeah.
and he was kind of like making pretend he was like fighting with them. I'm like, all right, this
So
is getting a little silly.
so he unfortunately does what we hate the most about characters, or at least I know I do. I don't like the broody, mopey, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
We had to get through all the mopiness, all the sins of my past,
Yeah,
kind of
I think
thing.
that's
And
his
it's like,
character.
yeah, and I get it, and now I see by the 5th episode he's still mourning the loss of Natasha, and he's still, thinking of all the things that he did, and he crossed the line at some point. He kind of snapped. Okay, but I'm like, all right, guys, let's get that through. Let's get over this. Like, all right, we get it. We get you're sad. We don't have to dwell on it for 4 episodes. Do you want to go sit on the boat with Falcon? You guys can talk it out with his sister. Get it over. And that's what it felt like at some point. That I'm like, all right, we're back into her apartment and we're just going to talk. We're just going to talk. And I'm like, guys, this is an action show. You only got 6 episodes. Can we skip the talking? Let's get it going. Let's get it going. But I feel like the pace has finally picked up, and he put his costume back on as Ronin, and now now and finally the action's going to happen, and we only got 1 episode left. So hey, it is what it is. But to your point,
it's better than Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'll be very clear on that.
Down,
it is
hands down. And my wife likes
better.
it better than Loki. She says it's just more easier to follow. It just makes more sense. Loki was kind of like, and I guess, and that's what happens when you do timeline, when you're jumping.
Yeah.
Talking about time travel and timelines. It's confusing. That's the problem with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this show is, I like the way it's going. And you touched on that whole Natasha's sister, and she did admit to the girl in the episode when she approached her at her apartment and was talking to her that she basically was purposely not trying to kill the girl. Right, the girl was holding her own, but she was holding back because she was paid not to hurt her.
Right,
she was paid to only take out what's the name. So she was in the way, and then when she said, "I kicked you off," so they try to justify like, "Yeah, we get it. This girl is not." Yeah.
Okay.
And the girl, the mute girl that's deaf, that's got the bionic leg, that's the most powerful cripple I've ever seen in my life. She's got like a fake leg, but she can move like the Black Widow. I'm like, He's a little stretch of the imagination.
She's a comic book character named Echo. So she's deaf, right? So she's almost has like almost a little bit like Daredevil, but a deaf version, not a blind version.
Yeah, she's got heightened senses. Yeah, I get it. And again, you have to,
you just got to go with those parts of it. And it's like, all right, it's the street level type Avengers, right? They're not like super powered, right? It's a little bit like those Netflix series, and I do kind of like because it gives a little other perspective to it. But does it make sense with Natasha's sister? Like, why is she trying to kill Hawkeye? I mean, it almost seems like doesn't she knows his whole backstory? Like, she knows that they were partners, like in for a long time. They know they were like great friends. They know she knows like a lot of their history together, and all of a sudden it's like somebody comes up to her and says, "Oh yeah, he's responsible for her death," and she gets that upset that she's just like, "All right, I'm gonna go kill him." Does that make that to me? That just doesn't. It's not enough for me to like be convinced that. As my kicker just kicked the field goal, I'm very happy about that. Just wanted to just throw that in there.
I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you.
Yes, thank you. But it just I feel like there's not enough justification for her to want to do that. You know?
I think in fairness to that is she kept on saying, "How well do you know him?" and how well does everybody, like, he has everybody fooled. So there must be something in his past that we just aren't being exposed to yet, that's going to have to come out. Now maybe she was being misled, because she is contracted, so she has to kill him, even if she doesn't hate him. It's just her job. It's her contract. And even she did admit that she's being contracted to kill him. So that it is.
Yeah, but is that enough to be like, hey, I'm hired to kill, my sister's, and it's not really her biological sister, but it was basically her sister growing up. Her sister's basically her best friend. You know what I mean? I mean, and I don't know if she knows like exactly how that happened from like the Endgame movie or whatever.
Well, she wouldn't, because she blipped, so she wouldn't know.
She wouldn't know. Right.
All she knows, and she doesn't, like, how would she know about the Ronin stuff? Like, she came back and all of a sudden, like, but she read up on it and said, "Oh, I don't like what he was doing." So that's why I don't know.
That's why it just doesn't. There's got to be something that we're missing, something that they haven't revealed yet.
I wonder if he, as Ronin, kills someone that was close to her. Like, like one of those people from the Black Widow movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, maybe he kills the father, or
yeah.
And maybe that's what we don't know.
That would make more sense. Sure.
Yeah, so there might be something.
Maybe that's the big reveal in the next episode.
Yeah, there might be some underlying hate that's just beyond, maybe when his time as Ronin, and maybe they were telling her Natasha died because of he sacrificed her for the greater good instead of sacrificing himself. So who knows? But that's kind of the premise. But I like it, and I because it just happened on Wednesday, I don't want to spoil it. But the ending to that episode got me so excited for the future of this timeline of whatever Marvel's doing. I don't care about the universal time jumping crap, but if they can stay in New York City, tie in Spider-Man with literally he's one of the biggest villains, but he's a huge villain for Spider-Man and other Marvel characters, and they can keep it like this. It's such a more believable thing. You don't have to worry about time jumping and all this crap. And space villains that want to consume the Earth for some whatever weird reason, because apparently Earth's this fertile planet that everybody wants to conquer.
Yeah. Can we drop his name?
Maybe next week. I say let's give it one more week. Let's do it. Because he's not really exposed in it. It's just a photo that he's looking at, and in the back of my mind when he said, I hope the big guy doesn't get involved, and I'm like, oh, I'm hoping this is what he's talking about. And when the picture came out, I was like, here we go. Now we're finally getting somewhere with Marvel. Yeah. And this ties in Spider-Man perfectly into this future upcoming movies and stuff like that. So
and you also wonder, like what I was saying earlier, like where's he been this whole time? Like that's kind of you start questioning like that, like.
Well, he's a crime boss. I don't want to spoil it, but anyways.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. You would think like, why was Hawkeye so almost afraid of him? Like, oh, we don't want to get him involved.
That's what I mean. Like, that's going to be great, because there's got to be more to the story that we don't know about, and that's got to start coming out. And to your point, he's like this villain kind of is the same situation as doesn't have the powers as the Chung-Chi villain, or his father, who has all these powerful rings. But they were both kind of crime bosses. So maybe they just didn't care. It's like, as long as I'm making money and I'm a crime boss, maybe they just didn't care what was going on the planet.
Right.
Like, so I guess you could look at it that way. Like, well, why do I care? I'm just a drug dealer or whatever. So I don't know. But it does open up some things. But anyways, we went on a complete Geek Squad thing, and I loved it. I just was really looking forward to catching up with you on this stuff. I'm getting so excited again.
There's a lot. There's a lot that has come out, and there's a lot that's coming out. And I'm pumped for Spider-Man. I really am. I love how that's coming out next week. I'm gonna see it Christmas Eve. We got tickets, so I'm gonna have to kind of.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we got them. I know it comes out tomorrow.
We might go this Friday.
Tomorrow night. So I hope.
No. Today's Thursday. We could have gotten tickets tonight. We were actually thinking about
tonight at midnight. Right? Yeah. So it's like late if you want to go see the late movie, because it comes out on the 17th. So I think it's like a midnight showing. You could actually go and watch it tonight.
Maybe when they were looking at
one of those
tickets.
things. But
Yeah, it's gonna be
I just
crazy.
hope there's no spoilers. Like I hope just stay away from social media. Like don't like. Hopefully nobody like spoils anything, and because it's gonna be a good week by the time I go and see it.
Oh, you're gonna have to stay up
But
Screen Rant and all those things. You're gonna have to
yeah,
stay
yeah,
away.
you can't see any of that stuff. So
Yeah, there'll be
um,
spoilers, but I don't think unless you're looking for it, you know you don't have to worry about coming across it.
yeah, I just think it's gonna be the start, and it's been touched on already with Loki. I don't know, was there another kind of show or more? Mostly Loki. It's just gonna. I think it's the start of introducing um, down the road. Maybe not in this movie, but I think down the road and explain a little bit how X-Men get introduced to Marvel and how like Fantastic Four gets introduced. Like that's the part that I'm kind of looking forward to because without Iron Man and Captain America, they were kind of the two main stars, the main Avengers for a while, and they're done. So it's like, who's the next guy to step up? They're trying to build it around Spider-Man, his character, but I think they need more. I think they need more, and I think once they get X-Men into it, I think that's
Well,
where it's really going to start taking off.
did you watch Venom?
No, I didn't. No, I think that's
Oh,
another one. No, I did not
okay.
watch Venom, so I got to
All right.
still watch that. But I
Yeah.
think that's another one that they're going to start pulling in somehow, and they're going to introduce him like into this universe.
If
So
you once you watch the end credits of Venom 2, it is clear
there's a
that
little bit of a little tease there.
yep,
Nice.
he's getting bled into the franchise. Um, yeah, so that was exciting because I'm sorry, that's where I was confused. We actually rented Venom 2 and watched it at home, but we saw Eternals at the movie theater pre-COVID, and then during COVID, we said, "All right, we've been dying to see Venom. Let's rent it on
Yeah.
Amazon or Apple platform." They were renting it finally. Yeah, it's not a great movie. So if you loved Venom, it just got too comical. They took the character to this like, where I think the first one was kind of dark with a little bit of humor. This one was the only way I can describe it is in Iron Man 2 when he kept on getting drunk and he was dancing in his Iron Man suit and it was like really
Hmm.
silly. Like then they were fighting between him and War Machine. And I'm like, this is kind of silly. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you're taking it
Yeah.
to another level. Like, all right, we're kind of being funny, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's worth watching. Woody
So no,
Harrelson.
no mopey for you, and no silliness.
Well,
Everything in between is fine. If too
I love.
silly, too mopey,
Well,
you don't like it.
Marvel's good at the subtle humor, right? Like they're so good. Like when you're watching Guardians of the Galaxy, there was funny parts, but it wasn't meant to be a slapstick movie. It's like it was like, all right, they always bled in the humor in it. Thor has
Right.
it. They did a good job, but for some reason in Venom 2, like all of a sudden, and I'll spoil this part because it was probably the dumbest part of the movie. The alien, the symbiote, leaves because they got into an argument, so they split from each other. He binds to somebody else and goes to a rave, and he's like it was like a costume rave or something,
Yeah.
and he was like dancing, and I'm like, this thing was eating people, and
And now it's dancing.
now he's dancing, and they're cheering
Yeah.
him, and like he's wearing glow lights around him, and I'm like, and you see that in the commercial, so that's why I can spoil that scene because
Yeah.
you're like, why the hell is he wearing glow lights around him? He's doing that on his own. This symbiote broke from the main character
Yeah.
and decided, I'm going to go to a rave because I'm not appreciated enough. And I'm like, so he was a broody alien. I'm like, what is going on? Like that's so stupid. And then you
Yeah.
got this like badass Carnage character, and Woody Harrelson unfortunately kind of overacted. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a big Woody
I kind
Harrelson.
of saw that in the commercial.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, and I don't even get how he formed. Like if you see when you watch the movie,
Mm.
you're like, that's where he came from. Really?
Mm.
Like that's it. It was kind of like, okay. But again,
Yeah.
I think they just needed a movie because they were like, all right, we got to tie this now into Spider-Man and let's get through this movie.
Yeah.
And now they show this end credit scene, and you're like, all right, now it's going to be tied. It's going to go tie into the real Marvel franchise at some point.
Right.
So it was interesting. But anyways, let's get into the Patriots talk. Let's wrap up like the last 15, 20 minutes. Patriots. I said to you on the message before, I was hoping our third man would hear to discuss it because I think that's something he would add insight on. So it's fair to say the Patriots have exceeded expectation, or is this where you expected them to be this so early on with Mac Jones? I mean, it's
Right
not just
now,
Mac Jones,
today.
but as a team, the way it started
Yeah.
and as of today, are they exceeding your
Honestly,
expectation?
no, I think they're right where I thought they were going to be. I didn't. I mean, I think because the rest of the AFC has struggled, right? I mean, Kansas City now is starting, and the Chargers just scored a touchdown to make it 10-7. But and the Chiefs, I think, have won the last 6 games in a row. So like they're back to being like an elite team in the AFC. But other than them, right? There's really nobody else in the AFC that scares you, right? So we look at the Patriots right now, and they're considered, I think, the number one seed in the AFC. Did I think they were going to be the number one seed before the season started? No, but I also didn't think all these other teams were going to be this bad either. But I think where they are at, I knew their defense was going to be solid, and this was with Stephon Gilmore, right? And
Yeah.
he's no longer around. But we all kind of knew they were going to have a good defense.
Stephen Gilmore.
Stephen Gilmore, yeah, Stephen Gilmore. So you have like Judon's been great. I mean, everybody knew the defense was going to be good. The best in the league, I don't know. I figured they were going to be top 5 at least. So that's not a surprise. It's not like Mac Jones is putting up huge numbers. He's just smart. He's just playing smart football, doing the things to drive down continue to move the chains and get the ball down the field. It's a run first team. It's kind of what we all expected. They're right. They have all these running backs and they're all doing great. So there's no big surprise. It's not like a receiver has just came out and just like, wow, that receiver is unbelievable. Aguilar, Bourne, like they're just doing okay. They're just doing their part. Isn't that what we all kind of expected before the season? So I'm not that surprised. I am a little surprised that the Bills aren't as good as they are this year. I'm a little surprised at that. I thought maybe the Bills would be first in the AFC.
Yeah.
And maybe the Patriots would be like right there second, fighting for a wild card. So maybe my expectations are now, I mean, they're like, it's a little bit, my expectations weren't this high, but it was pretty close. Pretty close. I mean, fair. I don't think it's that far. I don't think it's that far off.
The way the season started, I thought there was going to be some growing pains, and I thought that's what we saw. But what we talked about in earlier podcasts, when the Tampa Bay game was close, when the Dallas game was close, we see the light. Like we see the potential, we see the opportunity, and to be honest, a switch is turned on. And yet, some of these teams are hurting. I think we're just benefiting from luck at the same time. We're catching Tennessee without their main weapon. This weekend, I think with the Colts will be a real test. You're gonna have a stud running back. Wentz is not he doesn't scare me, but he does enough.
Right. He's been okay.
He's been okay. He's doing enough, but he doesn't have to do a lot because you got one of the best running backs in the league, and you got a good receiver in Pittman Jr. So it should be an interesting game to see where they go with this. But San Diego is up and down. I thought they were going to be much more competitive, and the Patriots held their own. So I am just kind of summing it up. I'm just really surprised to be the number one seed. I think there was a lot of luck. I think it's just exceeding my expectation. I think you kind of were saying it. You weren't expecting them to be number one. I didn't expect them to be winning their division. I really didn't think so. Like I really thought the Bills were going to lock it in. I thought Miami was going to be a much better team this year than what happened. I think Miami is a major disappointment. We knew the Jets were going to suck, but the Patriots really are leapfrogging two teams that really shame on them, should really be ahead of us. I mean, it is amazing to me, like where we are. And you touched on it. It's really the defense. That defense reminds me of early 2001 to 2006 Patriot defenses, like pound the ball, eat up the clock and have that defense just keep the score low. You don't need high scoring games. And it's been fun to watch. This is like kind of like early Brady that I used to love to watch, where I know it was great when Brady was killing everybody. Like we had the best quarterback in the league, But some of those games were like kind of boring. You're like, yeah, we're going to kill them. Yeah. All right. By halftime, you're like, yeah, the Patriots got this in cruise control. But all these games are kind of fun. Like, you never know what's going to happen.
They're close.
Yeah.
Right.
So
right. You don't know. Like, yeah. I mean, the Colts could easily come out and, Jonathan Taylor could have like 200 yards rushing. You don't really know. You don't really know. And when they do win, or when if the Patriots win and they beat them, it does create a little bit more of a sense of like accomplishment, right? It's like, all right, they beat a good team, not a great team in the Colts, but a good team, right? Strong, like great running back, and they're playing away, and so you're thinking, all right, another solid win against the good team. Now they got to go play the Bills again at home in Foxborough, and it's like, all right, it's another good team that they were able to beat in like crazy weather a couple of weeks ago. Now it's going to be a little bit. Hopefully, we'll see what the weather's going to be like. But then they finished the season with Miami and Jacksonville. I mean, it's like should be easy wins there. So it's like these next 2 weeks, I think we're going to get a better indication as to who these Patriots are, right, against these next two teams, and then we'll see, are they for real? Are they for real? Because you're right, because they have been able to beat teams missing a lot of their star players, right? I mean, no Derrick Henry, right, against Tennessee. I know, like the Chargers game, that was pretty legit. That was a good win. But the Bills, right, they lost their like best cornerback. I think it was Tre'Davious White. So it was kind of, and the winds, like the wind and the rain, and that kind of affected everything. So they threw the ball 3 times, right? So it's kind of like they are getting a little bit lucky in that regard. So I'd like to see these next couple of weeks against the Colts and the Bills and how they really are. And then now we'll see. But it is very reminiscent of their early 2000 teams. Very reminiscent.
Yeah, I was going back. So you're right. Titans, the Falcons were a weak team. The Browns were another team that, when we looked at the tickets, like, we thought that was going to be a good game. But I can't remember. Was Nick Chubb hurt for that game? Was that the game both Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt were hurt? I can't remember.
I think so. Yeah, it was Jarnis Johnson was like the guy. He was the guy running the ball, and he had like over 100 yards rushing. Like they still were able to run against the Patriots that game.
But we crushed them. I mean, 45.
Well, we crushed them because it ended up being a lot of turnovers and
I'm just going, the Panthers, no CMC, right? If I'm not mistaken, CMC was not in that game, right? That was Chubba Hubba.
Yep. Chubba Hubba.
Yep. And so I mean, I gotta say, like, when you look at their schedule, you're like, oh man, they're facing some like stud players are going to be coming to town, or we're going to them. We're going to be facing some real players, and honestly, I think a little luck has gone our way. I think the Bills are broken. I think mentally the Patriots broke them. I think, and I was talking to some friends because I have coworkers and friends over the years that are from Buffalo, and they hear locally, diehard Buffalo fans, and just talking to them, I'm like, they even admit it. It's got to be demoralizing that this team is just going to run the ball. They're not even trying to throw the ball, and you can't even stop them.
I know.
You couldn't even stop them. Like, as a coach.
Right.
Like, you weren't even out coached. You knew he like Belichick was telling you, I'm just going to run it down your throat. You guys just going to have to stop me.
Yeah.
And you can't stop them. Like,
I know.
That's got to be demoralizing.
Kind of crazy. Yeah.
And then
then
they faced this. Who did the Bills play? Was it the Rams last week? Yeah, it was the Bills and the Rams.
Yep.
So that was a big game. And then all of a sudden, because it was just this other night, that's got to be demoralizing. Like, you're playing like the best NFC team. You need a good rebound. You were kind of humiliated by the Patriots because they ran it and only threw the ball 3 times. Now you're facing this team, and you lost at the end. I mean, I don't know how they're going to I don't know how they're going to come to New England with a lot of confidence. I just don't know how they're going to do it. I feel like they're broken. And now you have Josh Allen limping a little. So that sucks, like, for them.
Yeah. And the coach is making like kind of excuses too after that game as well. Yeah, I think they're damaged. They're damaged goods.
They got to be. They got to. And they were trying to use, like, my friends were trying to leverage the weather, and I'm like, look, no offense, but they're a upstate New York team that's used to the cold.
Yeah,
we're a New England team. We're used to the cold. If you guys are playing each other, there's no advantage. We're both used to playing in the cold. it's not like you've got San Diego coming to Buffalo or New England and like,
Right,
it was
right.
really
And
cold.
they
They
were
couldn't
playing
handle it.
in Buffalo. They were
Yeah,
playing in their
exactly.
home stadium too, and it
Yeah.
just didn't make. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the
So it's
excuses
like,
don't
wait a
fly.
minute.
Yeah. I don't care what the weather was. Yeah. It was windy. Yeah. You guys should be used to playing in crappy, windy, cold weather.
Yeah.
That's what it is in Buffalo in this time of
Yep.
year. And yeah, it got me a free lunch because, for years I would bet with my friends a 6-pack. So by every game I'd win it. Basically after the season, I'd win a case because we would do double or nothing. And next thing I know, I got a case of beer because thanks to Brady, we always won every year, right? Once in a while I had to buy a 6-pack for somebody. And now that they wanted to bet because they're so confident, they're like, I'll bet you lunch. Okay. And now I'm getting a free meal out of it. So I'm
There you
excited.
go.
So excited.
I love
and
it.
now they want to do double or nothing. I'm like, I'll get a steak dinner out of it. I don't care. All right, let's go. I'm pretty
You
confident.
bet the farm on it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm happy to bet. I don't care. And you know what?
That's great.
I love it because at least it's competitive. Like before it was like, yeah, I know I'm going to win this. It got to the point where they stopped betting with me. They're like, look, no offense, but we know Brady's going to win. So we're done betting. It's kind of a stupid bet now. So now it's like, okay. But now they're like all cocky with Josh Allen. And again,
Well, they
Belichick,
lost to Brady and the Bucks, right? Before that, a couple weeks ago, like right after they played the Patriots.
I
Was
think
it the
so.
Bills? Yeah. So it's because I remember reading something online saying like the Bills were happy to see Brady leave the Patriots right in the division. They're like, all right, finally he left, and then to get beat by the Patriots and then also get beat by Brady like in a span of a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's got to be demoralizing. I don't know how they're not broken rolling into Gillette next week. I forget who they're playing this week, but I got to imagine they're banged up. All they got to do now is lose to the Jets, and then we know they're done. That's it. They'll be all
yeah.
That's good. That's all we're waiting for. But yeah, so I'm so excited about the Patriots season. I'm actually can't believe it, and because you're a ticket holder like I am, we might actually be going to a Patriots playoff game this season.
Yeah,
I can't even believe it.
I had
never
to.
thought.
I didn't do the pay as you play deal, so I had to buy all 3 tickets or 3 games. Because and then they give you a credit for whatever games that they don't end up using up, right? So it's like if they have, if like something happens from now until the end of the season, whatever, and they only have 1 home game, then you have the 2 other games that they either credit you or you could put it towards next season. But I had to get all 3 home games, which chances are at this pace they're gonna get a bye week, hopefully, and you have to worry about that first week. So now it's really just 2 games, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx
They wanted
it.
their money. They wanted their money. So I said, all right, whatever.
I'm excited to start a new era of going to playoff games with the Mac Jones at the lead.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that. So, all right, Big Meat. I don't have a lot more than that. I just wanted to jump in and do a podcast for our fans, and maybe we can squeeze one in before the holiday season next week. But I'm not 100% sure with the crazy holiday. But I don't know if you have any closing thoughts or anything else you wanted to cover. I know you want to watch the game, so I know.
Yes. Well, my closing thought is Los Angeles just scored another touchdown. So to Jalen Guyton. So now they're going to be up 14-10, which is good because the guy I'm playing has their kicker. So you know what? Score the touchdown, give him that measly point. I'm happy as long as it's not a field goal. So so far I'm happy.
Okay, well, as long as you're happy, Big Meat. Well,
yes,
we'll see if you sing a different tune next week. If you make
you know what? It could be you and I next week. Who knows? We'll see.
Then we definitely have to have a podcast.
Could very well be you and I. I think it's you and I if the only way that would happen is if Combine Boy wins. If Combine Boy wins. Because he's 3rd ranked, and then that means he would play the 2nd ranked, which is Jarvis, and then I would be the lower seed, and I would play you.
Okay.
But if COVID Boy wins, it does reseed.
Okay. So I always play the lowest seed, no matter who finishes where. Okay.
Right. There's no way you could play Combine Boy. It's either going to be me or a COVID Boy.
Okay. And I'd rather play Combine Boy because Combine Boy's team is reeling right now with injuries and COVID and everything. But COVID Boy's the plague is struck, and anything that he touches seems to die. So I don't know.
Yep.
We'll see. But
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
It'd be an exciting time. Hope I just got to get through this week.
All right. Well,
Make
good
it
luck,
happen.
big mate. Good luck. I don't know if I want to deal with your grin next week if we're facing each other, but we'll see. We'll see.
Still alive. Still alive.
All right, folks, here you go. A nice quick podcast for your drive while you're doing your holiday shopping. And as always, you can find us on Apple, SoundCloud. You can give us reviews. You can give us some likes. And if you really want this more full-time on a regular basis, help us get some sponsors and help us pay for this. And that way we can quit our jobs and make this a full-time thing for us. How about that? There we go. All right, big mate. Have a great night.
You too.